Now, Bill West, you've just spent some time in Canberra talking to everybody who matters about local issues. How did you get on?
Well, probably more regional issues, Gary, than the specifically local issues, and of course a lot of them do cross over into local matters. But Centrock did meet in Parliament House, and I think we've got to express appreciation up front to Angus Taylor, the federal member, who did help organise, and specifically to organise the day, and the array of ministers and parliamentary secretaries who came to talk to us, and of course the venue. So Angus was very, 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 very supportive and very appreciative of that. We were able, in a two-day period, we spoke to the opposition, perhaps briefly, but we spoke to the opposition and put forward some of the issues within the region. On the Tuesday, we also spoke to three senior policy advisors, to Barnaby Joyce, to Senator Fiona Nash, and to the Deputy Prime Minister. And then yesterday we had meetings with three ministers, Susan Lay, Malcolm Turnbull and Ed McFarlane, as well as three parliamentary secretaries. The discussions ranged from water security, the agricultural white paper, obviously got a chance to raise the issue of the dam on the Bladder and where we'd like to see that going, and
the NBN
raised concern that the only dam that was in the white paper was in the Tamworth region, and you can look at a map and work out whose electorate that is, but I'll say no more about that. Ian McFarlane, of course, on some good advice and direction in terms of engaging with his department and regional development and growth, and Malcolm Turnbull, of course, with talking about NBN, mobile phone black spots, and raised issues at a, I wouldn't say a lower level, and certainly a very important level from a community perspective, but issues around just, in some quarters, television reception.
Now, there's been a problem here. I think they changed some setting on the tower up on Billygate Hill, and I know a lot of people had to spend a few dollars so they could actually get back to having their 2B as it was before. That's changed it. And I know Angus Taylor has put out that there's so many black spot towers which are being built. I don't think it's complete. I think it's an 18-month program. But by the same token, the NBN is sort of something which obviously it means a lot to me. Do we know where we're likely to touch it?
And back on the black spot ones for mobile phones, there's a lot of work's been done on that, and credit where it's due, and I know that both in Hume and Calais there's been some good results there. NBN, of course, is an issue that is just on everybody's mind. The time frame is reasonably tight, but it would appear that from what we're hearing, the Minister is all over the portfolio in a very positive way. So I'd have to say we're very hopeful. They're not giving definite time frames,
that's
but they're working on it very strongly, and I would suggest next 12 months, 2 years, there's going to be some significant improvements. With some of the larger satellites that have been launched, but also in getting NBN internet connectivity, if you like, up and running in across our area. And certainly the point was made as to, and I think it's understood, in fairness, I think it's understood just how important it is to rural regional areas and some of the disadvantages that we have, and I think Canberra has been reasonably, I'm not saying fortunate, but reasonably well placed in some areas of service, and there's other communities in the region who, if a business wanted to start, they had to transfer their home internet to the business
to make it work,
because the capacity is just not there. But I think they're getting their head around some of those issues now. So I'm optimistic and damn hopeful, because it is so important to our community, just not from business and industry. And if we're going to be competitive, we need to have it. And technology is certainly heading that direction. So it's a necessity. It's not just a wish anymore or a dream. But it also affects people's lives.
That's right. I did hear the other day too that there's in the more remote areas there is a bit of a hassle with capacity with the satellites. There is a new satellite to be launched, I believe, October, November this year, which may double it, because you've got, I know, particularly with School of the Air, that was creating a major problem, because downloading their schoolwork was becoming a drama. That was costing nearly $500 a month to be able to access what they needed to. It replaced the School of Air, but it's on the internet rather than the radio these days. So let's hope that goes ahead. That's very important. The other thing which is interesting is the road over the Blue Mountains, the
The Bells Line
The
Expressway.
Bells Line Expressway. It's not very express at the moment. So have we got any indicators of where that may go?
Not very expressway. No, you're quite right. Particularly you look at the bypass of the Toowoomba Range, they're now building a second one with public-private money. So that raised a few eyebrows.
I bet you did. Yeah.
Centroc's been as a region, I've been privy to some of the conversations, the meetings where talking about Transport New South Wales and some of the advisors in terms of the consultants in terms of the linkage on that eastern end. Continuing to push strongly for the preservation of the corridor. So A, it gives some certainty to that, and B, it can get inculcated into LEPs. So the planning document is there for it. But we see it as the real desperate, urgent need is to get that corridor sorted on the eastern end because of the significant development that's starting to take place on that.
Well, you've got the Sydney Basin expanding that far out now.
And well, one of the conversations we've recently had was with a group that are looking at a corridor for the Sydney outer Sydney orbit, which will somehow link the M7. No one seems to know yet how to link into Badgerys Creek Airport, coming to the foot of the mountain. So that's being considered for passenger rail and transport. So that was one of the conversations we're having as a matter of urgency to try and get that at least that take-off point and preserving that, because that area was growing in an astronomical manner, and there was all sorts of releases of land and growth areas being discussed. So and I'll be quite frank, the government doesn't really get its act together, and all political parties don't get their act together, they will gridlock Sydney.
Right, gridlock Sydney, but they also put a new meaning to the sandstone curtain, don't they?
Well, and one of the issues is then going to be how do you get freight. Most importantly, and people obviously got to move, no question on that at all. So tourism and all those issues, people's private lives are impacted, but how do you get freight across the mountains, number one? But when you get across the mountains, where do you go? How do you find your way through the maze of residential and industrial areas and eventually get to the port? Particularly if they still think they're going to get access into Port Botany. The port's got the capacity, but the transport nodes into it aren't really.
It's like a very small pipe into a large tap, isn't it?
Exactly.
The other thing being, of course, too, the Central West is big on production of crops and whatever, and the only way to really relieve the Sydney Basin of their huge population growth is to have population somewhere else where you can actually get to, which has got to be the Central West, sure.
And somewhere where you can produce it.
That's right.
And you look at a place like, well, you look at and I wear my Canberra hat, also you wear a Centrock hat in fairness to some of this, but you look at the Lachlan Valley. You look at there's a significant dairy just on our border. You go down to the east, you've got significant pine plantations, forestry around the Oberon area. You've got some incredible agricultural country, some wonderful irrigation, horticultural land around here. Cherries in young, apples in orange.
It just goes on.
The list is endless.
And it's surprising they don't see, or haven't quite grasped the need for that to open up. I would have thought the Bells Line of the road along with the NBN would open up New South Wales remarkably.
Incredibly so, and that's one of the reasons that within Centrock and within Canberra Council supporting it, within Centrock there's also a very strong push for the Bunny to Wanda rail line, inland rail, seen as a very important key, and we're also talking about the Malden-Donbarton linkage back on Mossvale down to Port Kembla. So Bells Line Road is incredibly important. It's probably the jewel in the crown, but there are other roads, Lachlan Valley Way, getting access into Canberra from this end of Centrock, and from Canberra getting access into Canberra, getting access into southwest Sydney, access into Port Kembla, linking the sand in the north to the snow in the south. So there's all those issues that there's a whole lot of dollars to be spent on transport infrastructure and a whole rethinking, I think, of getting out of Sydney.